Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new here. It is day 3 of 31 days of December, and today I am going to talk to you. I've been given such special permission and I feel so privileged to share this story with you. One of my very dear friends has had an experience over a couple years ago, and she gave me permission as well as video proof that this had happened to her. And I think not only is it like, it'll be kind of a terrifying story in a way for a lot of people in the beginning, it's also a very special story because of the outcome of what happened after all of this happened. So I'm going to kind of start back at the beginning-ish, kind of, and kind of give you a little bit of a lay of the land leading up to the event that I will play the clip of after this. So my dear friend Tracy had moved into a new house, and it was basically a house that had the upstairs suite, and then it had a basement suite as well. And so for the first couple of years, she lived upstairs, and in this house, little random things would go and be missing or turn up in odd places. Things would be moved or what have you, and she kind of just brushed it off and was never really bothered by it until a couple of things kind of started picking up. So one of the things that she had told me was that at one point she was walking by her countertop and the carafe from her coffee machine actually slid out and off of the coffee machine itself and onto the counter as she walked by it. Again, she just brushed it off. A little while later, she was sitting in her office, and some of our old houses up here are wired really weirdly, and you actually have to make sure that a light switch is on for a plug-in to work. And so her internet is set up in her living room, and that is the case for the plug-in it's plugged into. You have to have a light switch on for the plug-in to even work, and therefore for the internet to work. And so she was in her office across the house doing all of her work, and halfway through her internet turned off. And she thought it was, no real big deal. We have a lot of issues up here with our internet service and our electric service. Being so isolated in the far north, and we're not even that far north. And so she got up to go and check and see if anything was weird about it. And when she went to go look, the light switch was off. Now, keep in mind, through all of this, she is living by herself. She is the only person in her part of the house with her dog. So there's nobody else around or anything like that. So this all kind of happens, and after a while, she decided to move into the basement part of the house and rent the upstairs. So some guys moved in upstairs, she moved into the basement, and kind of all around the same time, she started noticing that her dog was sleeping and spending most of his time predominantly in the back bedroom in the basement, and not really coming out aside to eat and go for a walk and do that kind of thing. And one day, one of the guys who was renting the upstairs came down and said, "Hey, did you come up to the kitchen door at all today?" And she said, "No, why?" And he said, "Well, I got home and I kicked off my shoes on the deck, and I walked into the kitchen and turned around, and they were placed neatly on the sill of the door frame." And she said, "No, I haven't touched them. I wasn't up here at all." So that kind of freaked the guys out a little bit. She didn't really say anything about the fact that she'd experienced other things upstairs herself. And they kind of just let it lay low for a little bit. Then things kind of picked up one night when she woke up at about 4 a.m. and she could smell smoke in her bedroom. And of course, like any sane person, she started panicking. She realized that it was cigarette smoke that was filling the bedroom. And when she ran outside to see if anybody else was awake or if there was any smoke coming from anywhere, that it was actually isolated to her bedroom and nowhere else in the house. So that kind of freaked her out. She then was talking to one of her coworkers about everything that was going on, and they said, you know, this is a little weird. I think you should call this person and get them to come in and help you with the house. So she did end up actually calling one of our well-respected First Nation members, who came in and did a smudge of the house, enlightened her to the fact that her dog had actually been keeping the spirit of an old woman company in the back room, and he had helped this woman move on. And things kind of seemed to be going okay for a little while after that. The dog came out again, everything was okay. And then things kind of started to go downhill for her. I didn't ask for any details, and I only got what was needed for the story, but traumatic event after traumatic event started compiling. Eventually, her dog had to be put down, and it was around that time that things kind of started to pick up. Now, what happened was about 3 months after her dog passed away, she ended up getting a cat named Spook, who was this gorgeous little black cat and was basically absolutely terrified of everything. And she ended up going to Montreal for some training and just to have a little bit of a vacation. And while she was there, she went to Chinatown. And she walked into this shop, and in the shop there was a complete wall full of like little bobblehead dolls, and they were all painted traditionally. And she got very drawn to the fact that she absolutely needed one of these dolls, and she couldn't explain it, but she thought she would buy one and she would give it to her brother as a gift. So she bought a doll, brought it home. Now these dolls are in like little plastic containers, so they're in little like plexiglass boxes almost, with the doll inside. And she brought it home, put it on her dresser in her bedroom, until she decided to give it to her brother. So it sat on the dresser, and it never moved unless you like jostled it. Like, it wasn't one of those things that like you bump the table really lightly and like it would move. Like, you had to really physically move this doll for it to move. So she kept it in its box. It sat on her dresser for quite a while, and for like 3 weeks it stayed there, never moved, never did anything. It just hung out, was there. And one day she came into the bedroom and she was cleaning up, doing things. She took a pile of clothing and threw it towards the dresser. And as she did that, she noticed that the head of the doll was moving. So she figured, you know, maybe the clothes like hit the dresser enough with enough force that it just caused the head to move and whatever. So she kind of brushed it off and went about her day. Later on, she was in bed and she looked over and she noticed that the head was moving again. At this point, she then began to notice that there was an orb of, as she put it, shimmering energy that was circling above the doll itself. And while she was watching this energy kind of swirling above it, she watched it go down and force itself into the head of the doll, and the head started moving again. So at this point, she was thoroughly freaked out. She got dressed, taking the doll out into the kitchen, and while she was putting on her coat, she noticed that swirling, sparkly energy was coming slowly out of the bedroom and following her towards the doll where it was in the kitchen. And so then she decided she was going to try and grab her camera on her phone and film what was going to happen next. And luckily enough for us, she actually got it all on film. I do have the footage, which I am going to play for you right now.
Okay. I'm gonna watch it. Come on, just do it. Why? Why are you doing that? Oh my God. Okay, did everybody see that? Okay, you're leaving my house right now. Right now.
Yeah. Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever seen? Like, obviously we can't see the energy that she saw, but you can tell that something has forced itself into this the head of this doll, and it's violently shaking. She made sure that there were no vehicles going by, there were no earthquakes, there was nothing going on in or around her house that would have caused this doll to do this other than that energy. So, being even more freaked out, she took the doll, drove to the nearest grocery store, and threw it in their dumpster. Now, being the adorably sweet person that she is, she felt so bad that she had then burdened the grocery store dumpster with this doll. She actually went into the gas bar and told the worker there that she had done all of this, and the worker actually got freaked out and asked her why she left it with them. After that, it wasn't that she couldn't stay at her home, but she wasn't comfortable there. The way she put it to me was like it was being in the middle of a home invasion. She would go to work, she would work her job, and once, everybody left at 4:30 and she had to stay that extra half hour, she started getting really uneasy, and it just wasn't a fun time for her. So she did end up actually calling back the First Nations member that I had mentioned earlier, and he came back and he smudged the house, and he said, I don't know what they want, but they want you to know that they are here, and that they're not a malevolent energy by any stretch of the imagination, but they are very insistent that you know that they exist in your house. So then he left her with some special smudge. He also left her with a little medicine bag that she was to wear daily. And he then told her that if she still didn't feel safe in a few days, to call him back and he would come back and smudge the house. She still didn't feel safe. Eventually, she ended up actually just doing the smudging herself. And he had taught her how to do it properly, how to go through the house, how to go from room to room, and how to do everything. So she then was able to reclaim her space, reclaim her house, and push the energy out. That same night, she experienced a really terrible, terrible case of sleep paralysis, which she described to me as one of the worst things she has ever felt. She had this fight with something large and dark that was not willing to give up, but she did manage to fend it off in the end. And after that, everything just kind of settled. everything just petered right out. She ended up moving back upstairs and renting out the bottom suite in her house instead. And it wasn't until a little while later that she went to a local business in town that does yoga and kind of like Reiki healing and that kind of thing all mixed together. And the woman who was doing the session for her apparently was sitting cross-legged across from her on this pillow, and she started nodding her head the way that the bobblehead doll was, and told her that the energy that was there was trying to be seen because they wanted her to get out of the house and get better. They weren't there trying to scare her, get her out of the house in a bad sense. It was they were trying to scare her in order for her to realize that she had fallen so far that it was time to pick up the pieces and move on, and start going forward with her life. And that, you know, the slump was not a necessary thing anymore. And I think it's interesting how maybe some of the cases where people are having, you know, things happen in their house that seem evil and just really unusual, might not actually be something that is meant to hurt you, but is actually just trying to get you out and doing something with your life. And yeah, I'm happy to report that she has not had any other experiences in the house for the last 2 years, and the doll has not returned. It disappeared forever after it got put in the dumpster, which was very gratifying to her. And yeah, I think it's one of those stories that starts out really like intense, but then it ends well and it ends happy, and things have now smoothed out. She now has a gorgeous puppy whose name is Charlie. He is amazing, the most special dog I think I've ever met aside from my own. And yeah, I would love to hear anybody else's thoughts on this story, about what it may have all meant, or if you've had any experiences similar to this. If you have, please leave them down below in the comments. I can't wait to read them all. Like this video if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because I upload a video every single day for the entire month of December, and then we'll be back again in the new year with some more fun and exciting things. Bye, guys.